did spend some time at the City of McMaster and at City of Mississauga at McMaster University. While I was at the City of Mississauga, I had the real pleasure of working with a few others on kicking off the very first Public Sector Project Management Forum. So it was really exciting to see that it's still going strong and to be able to come back and chat with folks. It's really in that context of shifting from public sector to private sector that I titled this slide Lessons from the Dark Side. So let me just explain a little bit. In 2009, I was at McMaster University, and the economy being what it was, I found myself needing to find a new pond. And I thought I was going to shift into a pond of about the same size. I thought I was, pretty decent fish. I should be able to land back in the public sector. I had no dream that I would shift to the private sector. But an opportunity came up, and I did. And it turned out that where I landed at Colliers Project Leaders was a very big pond. In the time that I was in the public sector at Mississauga and at McMaster, I had done about 10 projects. When I got to Colliers Project Leaders, in the 10 years that I've been there, I've been leading and involved in 127 projects. And that's given me a very different perspective. So I've been learning from the projects that I've done personally, that the company has done, and also from the project environments of the clients with which we work. So it gives me lots of lessons, and I want to put those in a framework of innovation. Now, from Brian's talk before, my terminology might vary a little bit. So our innovations come first from lessons learned within our own organizations, our own direct experience, or best practices that we can define within our organization. Now, I've got a bit of a different term than best practices. This is best practices from elsewhere. So do we look beyond the scope of our own organization and understand what works well, what practices that can be used that we can internalize? And then we've got new ideas. These are the sparks of brilliance that come from, I don't know what, haven't figured that out yet, because if I had, I'd be much better off. And those are rare. I'm going to focus today on best practices from other organizations that you might be able to apply to your own. So these are the 5 that I'm going to focus on today. These are 5 areas where we teach our own project managers. Now, as Samir covered in my introduction, I lead the professional practice area of Colliers Project Leaders. So I'm responsible for the onboarding of, this year, 255 new project managers that come from all walks of life. Some from brand new out of school, some very experienced. The things that I'm teaching here, talking about here, are what I teach our folks so that they can be proficient experts, carry on the level of quality that we want to deliver. Almost nothing is really new in terms of the theory, but I hope that I can give you some angles on the practice that the practitioners that join us find interesting. So the first thing is to understand why our clients are doing their projects. And in one of the earlier sessions, we had somebody that was in requirements to say, what's the problem that your project was solving? And sometimes the way we frame the question changes the way we answer it. So Assad answered it in what was the biggest challenge that you solved. But earlier in his presentation, he had talked about the rationale for the project. Why are we doing it? We're trying to improve our service. These are the kinds of understanding why that I want to get at. So let me give you an example that doesn't hit the IT folks at all, sorry. But we were doing a project for a major retailer. We were doing their offices for them. And their retail environment is focused on selling to young folks. They were experiencing growth. They wanted to attract and retain young talent because they had to have that perspective to meet their business need. So we were doing this project for them, and I was working with another project manager who was very focused on making sure that this was on time and scope and on budget. Partway into the project, the client came to me and said, "Your guy is killing me. I come up with all these ideas, and he's holding me back, saying that if you do that, it's going to go over budget, or it's going to take too long. And my job is on the line. If I don't deliver a space that's going to be attractive to new people, I'm fired. Frankly, I don't care about the budget." Now, in the public sector, that doesn't happen, but time might be something that you don't actually care about. You've got to deliver it right. The point is that time scope, being on time, on scope, on budget, you have to get them, but it doesn't guarantee project success. We need to understand what is the business objective that our clients are trying to get to, and how do we make sure that we deliver that. So, we need to look at project objectives in terms of how do we make sure that we are going to deliver at the end of the day the benefits that caused people to invest money in this project. Now, there's a few areas where we get people off track. And actually, I was delivering to a group of our folks the other day about project objectives, and they were saying, yeah, that's the business objectives, but what are the project objectives? I mean, what are you going to do? I really want to emphasize that changing our way of thinking so that what we do is not the why we do the project. The project is not to deliver a library. The project is to deliver the service. The project is not to build an IT system. The project is to get the benefits that an IT system will provide. So it's not the scope. Deal with the scope separately, understand the why. It's also not design aspirations. So we really get in the first step when we move people about what is your project objective. They try to tell us what they're going to do. Then they say all of the features that they're going to do in it. So I need a building that is sustainable. I need a building that is warm and welcoming. So these are design aspirations. Sometimes they get called design objectives, but they're not why you do the project. Those are the things that you think about after you've decided to do the project. Now, what does it want to be like? So, we want to really focus on getting to the why. Because success on the project is whether you've delivered on the stated and implied needs of the project. The stated and implied needs that lead you to invest in the project. If you don't achieve those, you haven't achieved success. The next thing I want to focus on is measuring success. And quite frankly, our folks have a hard time getting to this point. So if we think about metrics, the first thing we think about is let's do SMART objectives. Specific, measurable. We have a debate about whether it's achievable or ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. So we set out objectives. I want to focus on the measurability of them. And measurability often factors in our project world into time bound. So we're going to know if we're successful if, in Saul's example, our usership goes up. If the people are more satisfied. These are all tend to be post-project metrics. And that's what our clients are interested in. But how useful is it to us if I start a project and its goal is, one of the things that we want to do is improve energy efficiency as compared to our typical building, so a year after we're done the project, we'll know if we're successful or not. Managing the project, how does that help me? Yes, our client's going to measure it that way, but I need something that's going to help me make sure that I'm going to achieve success. So I need a lag time. I need an interim metric that is going to let me know that we are destined for success. In our example of the organization that wants to attract and retain new talent, they're going to be judged on their retention rate after a year. But if if the retention rate sucks after a year, we have to redo the project. So I need some sort of a proxy measure that's going to tell me whether I am destined for success. So we talk about how we might measure it. We might get a group of recent hires and put them in a room and have them talk about the features that are necessary to make it an attractive space. If I can get a consensus on that, it's a useful proxy of whether it's going to be attractive when it's finally built. Now, when we go to success measures, some of them are challenging. Most of the success measures that our clients are interested in are objectively measurable after the fact. And that's our ideal, is that we can have a number. I reach that number, I'm good. Most of the proxy measures that we deal with are qualitative metrics. And that means we've got to get somebody's judgment on whether we're on track or not. And our best methodology for identifying good qualitative metrics is to figure out, okay, who's going to make the decision? It could be a steering committee, it could be a sponsor. Somebody has to make that determination on the qualitative metrics. We want to know when we can measure it, and earlier in the project, the better. We also want to know what criteria we're going to use. So if I'm going to have a steering committee or perhaps a marketing committee evaluate the project on whether it's delivering the brand message, I want to have them focus on that particular part of the evaluation of the design, not the whole thing, because they're not going to be the ones that necessarily choose how the desks are positioned. They may be involved in color selection or in the relationship of the building to the desks to the window. So, if we put some structure and discipline around how we develop success metrics, we can engage more directly in telling whether we are destined for success. So if success then is making sure that we achieve the stated and implied goals, and what we're really looking at on success metrics is measuring the quality. Now, for those of you that are familiar with PMBOK, the definition of quality is the totality of characteristics that bear on the stated ability to meet the stated and implied needs, which is our definition of success. So when we get to dealing with project metrics, this is really about implementing quality in the project. The third thing that we want to focus on is solving risks. Now, risks are anything that could get in the way of us achieving the stated and implied needs, achieving quality, achieving success. We want to pay the most attention to those that have the biggest potential impact on achieving success. We've developed a really structured approach to the analysis of risks because we believe that if we can define the risk properly, it makes it an awful lot easier to solve them. So when we define risks, we want to know, first of all, what is it that's uncertain? So a risk by definition is something that is uncertain and it may affect your project. Let's get to the root cause of what is uncertain. Often, we get people saying, well, there's a risk that there may be a delay. That's not sufficient to solve. It doesn't get enough to the root cause. Because in fact, we measure risks on their impact on time and on money. So saying that there's a risk that it might be late is just saying, well, there could be any risk that could cause us to be late. We need to get to what is the root cause, what is the factor that could contribute to us being late. So it could be that I've got a vendor that might not have enough resources. And if we think that that is the risk, that There may be a vendor that does not have enough resources to support us and deliver as fast as we need, and that may lead us to be late. That changes the way that we look at solving that risk. Because now we're trying to find vendors that have adequate resources to meet our needs. And that can help solve the time. We also want to know how it will affect the project. So in my just immediately previous statement, the root cause of vendor not having enough resources could lead us to delay. We can also look at it, how do we mitigate the potential impact of that risk on the project? And then we want to know how bad could it be? Because we got lots of things that could happen on our project. We want to know what are the worst things that could happen on a project so we can invest the most effort on those. And that way, we can figure out how we reduce the probability or impact of those risks on our project. Now, after we've gone through and figured out the risks, we want to get into a regime of monitoring and managing the risks. We want to make sure that the person that is monitoring the risk is in the best position to notice that this risk is happening. Because risks rarely happen all at once. It becomes apparent that it's in our face. More often, they become gradually more evident that this risk is rearing its ugly head. So this is like when you've got kids and they're growing up. Every day you see them, you don't notice that they're growing up, but 2 months go by and Aunt Helen and Uncle Bill come to visit, and oh my, how you've grown, and then you realize that their pants are up to here. So we want somebody to be monitoring the risk that is able to look at the project at intervals so that they can perceive whether that risk is actually happening. This is one of the big challenges for public sector project managers, because they tend to be on the project every day, so it is harder for them to recognize the risk. So having some discipline and saying, okay, we're going to do a monthly checkpoint. Is it actually worse than a month ago? Not just worse than yesterday, because you won't notice the difference between yesterday, but you will if you look at it and how has that changed in a month's time. On the dark side, we tend to see projects at intervals, and that makes it easier for us to identify when risks are affected. Let's go on. So this is our framework of looking at the project management body of knowledge areas. If success is everything, delivering quality allows us to deliver success. Managing the risks makes sure that the quality gets there in the risks, and all of the other knowledge areas are subservient to that. The next thing I want to talk about is being intentional. Now, for project managers, we do tend to be intentional. We're there to build a plan for the project, and we craft that plan so that it's going to get us to the promised land. We sometimes forget to be as intentional as we could be on delivering all of the pieces, on exercising the tools that we have in our kit of parts. If we approach things in a more intentional way, we have a greater opportunity to create success. The intentionality on success keeps us from spending time on things that are less important. Now, in these three things, what I've called the standard methodologies, or what Brian called the best practices, the internal practices. To the extent that we can use a standard methodology to deliver the routine things that we do on every project, it makes us more efficient doing them. And that allows us to spend more time thinking about the unique aspects of the project those aspects that will contribute to its success. The more you can shuffle off into artificial intelligence or to a template that you can rapidly fill in and shunt off so that you can actually spend time thinking and being intentional about how you're going to approach the unique aspects of the project, the greater chance you have for success. We also want to intentionally look at the opportunity to have points of leverage. So it may be, if we took Assad's library example, we got to get the board aligned with this and feel comfortable with the risks that we're going to undertake. And once we've got that, the rest of the pieces will fall in line. Our goal is to take that Jenga puzzle and figure out which of the things are going to control the success of this endeavor. It takes time to think of where you've got a point of leverage, and you need to make time for that. We also need to be intentional in how we lead our projects and how we inspire or motivate our teams. And this is the thing that Brian identified AI can't do. This is the uniquely human aspect of it. So when we're leading projects, our project teams, our stakeholders are looking to us to provide leadership. And the things they look for are, do you have a vision? Can you communicate that clearly? But the thing that they're looking for most of all is, can you inspire me and make me want to achieve success with this project? You can go about that intentionally. Inspirational leadership is part innate but partly learned skill. And there are a lot of things that you can do to improve your ability to inspire and motivate your teams. And when I say teams, I mean the whole set of project stakeholders. From my time in the public sector, and may not have changed much, we have to get an awful lot of other people in the organization to align and do work on our project when they've got a lot of other busy work to do. So we have to think about how we inspire them to do work on our projects rather than anything else they got to do. It's not that our projects compete with the others, but we do have to compete for their time. So being intentional about how we approach them, how we manage the stakeholders, will contribute to your success. And the last bit I have is have a plan. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there is often a perspective that the plan is fluff. This is an actual statement from one of our VPs. As part of the professional practice team at College Project Leaders, I deliver courses on development of project plans. And the president has deemed that all vice presidents should attend these courses. So here am I teaching vice presidents how to do project plans. And one of them made this comment that we often push it aside as a bit of fluff, that it's a theoretical concept and it has no value. But it actually does have value. And the key things in having a good, tight project plan are that it is readable and people will engage with it and understand it. I think it can be done in 6. Most of our guys think that that's impossible. We should get it to 8. And it does take a lot more time to get it to 6 from 8 pages. We have some people that build 80-page plans. And I'm pretty sure that readers will retain more out of an 8-page plan than they will out of an 80-page plan. So we really encourage them to be tight. So I've talked already about objectives, success metrics, and risks, and yes, they belong in your plan. And then we've got how we manage scope, time, and cost, because we have to do that. And you'll note that we've got a scope section, so don't put scope in the objective section. Our plan should also talk a lot about our communication management and our communication with our stakeholders. And of course, roles and responsibilities. So covered off the knowledge areas. Oh, procurement strategy. That's the other one. You guys were shy. So procurement in the public sector is often a key aspect of our project delivery, and we have to make sure that we do that in a strategic and intentional fashion. Otherwise, we just get the lowest price and the lowest performance. So, if our project plan can cover this stuff really briefly, it will be effective in communicating to the whole project team what is our plan, how are we going to go through this and achieve success at the end. Why it's important is that your project team and stakeholders are almost certain to change over the life of your project. I'm working on 3 projects right now where none of the people in my stakeholder group are the same as when the project started. One of the biggest risks to project success is having a change in direction, having new people come in and not understand why we're doing this project and how we got to where we got to. Having a project plan makes it that much easier to reorient people. I had a project a while ago where I came in one day to meet with my client representative, and the receptionist said, "You're actually meeting with this other person. Your client representative is no longer going to come." So I've got a brand new person who is struggling because on top of everything else they were doing, now I've got to deal with this project. So we have a project plan, we go through the project plan, this is where you're going, these are the decisions that you're going to have to make over the next 3 months, this is how we're going to get you through it. We play a very valuable role as project managers, project leaders, if we can help our clients understand where they need to be looking as they move in and out of our project realms. So, who sees our plan? Well, everybody. The client, the team, your vendors need to know how they fit into the larger obstacle. This is about part of intentionally motivating and inspiring people to support our project objectives. Yes, our wider group of stakeholders. So, why do you need this? I've talked a bit about it, but let's be explicit and intentional on it. We are setting shared expectations. Our sponsors have a view of what they're going to achieve within the project. We need to share those expectations with everybody else so they know how they fit in on meeting those expectations. We need to be explicitly focusing on success, so we need to be making sure that we are driven to achieving those metrics that will show we're on path to success. Talk about changing stakeholders. Within your own project team, you may have backup resources. You may be in a position where you need to bring on more resources to help you move the plan forward. If you've got a project plan and you can say, okay, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, read these 8 pages and you're going to be much more informed about what role I need to fill on this particular project. And the last one, the one that seems to hit home actually, is if you have a plan, your backup is in a better position to take over when you go on vacation. And you can come back to your project knowing that it has been moved along in the right direction and not have it stall while you're away. So, what I've been giving you is, I would call borrowed innovations, things that we have found contribute to our success as a company and the success of our clients. If we start by understanding why we're doing the project and be really deliberate and explicit about understanding what the objectives of the project are, if we can make sure that everybody agrees that our success metrics are going to be complete and adequate to define or to show that we are on path to achieving those objectives. if we can focus our energies on solving risks, hopefully before they become fires that we have to fight, if we can be intentional in the way that we go about delivering our projects, and if we can have a plan, not a theoretical construct, but an actual useful plan that people will read and understand, it will greatly improve our opportunities to deliver successful projects. Any questions?
Because you mentioned that plan you can see by stakeholders to change, do you consider it a living document so that you then substitute the new people's names into your document, or is it set in stone at the beginning?
So the question was, because of my comments about having a plan useful for stakeholders that change, do you see the plan as being a living document, or is it a set plan at the beginning? It is definitely a living document. It is not useful to craft a plan, put it aside, and then not update it when the factors around the project change. So, at a minimum, you've got to plug the new stakeholders in there so that everybody else knows what role they're playing and how they're going to fit in. But it may mean that has to change the way you communicate with them. It may mean that it brings a slight change in the objectives of the project, because if it's your sponsor that changes, they may have a different view on what the project ought to be. And sometimes, when sponsors change, projects get canceled. Or they get doubled down on.
Hi, Jim. So I want to get back to the definition of success and the fact that we're looking beyond the project to the benefits that our customers are looking for. So I want to ask you, how do you manage when your benefits are factors that could be impacted by multiple other things other than the project that you're delivering? So sometimes it's not a one-to-one relationship. While you have done a great job on the system and so on, probably some other factors that are happening within this organization could be impacting the ability to realize these benefits. So what can we do about this?
Okay, so this definition of success, we achieve our stated and applied needs, and I think the question really goes to, what if we are not the only factor that controls the achievement of these stated and applied needs? And a variant of that is, what if there's some other thing, environmental condition, that's conspiring to prevent us from achieving those? So this really goes to defining SMART objectives, specific, measurable, that are measuring what your project can do. So going back to my attract and retain talent, there's lots of things in the organization that affect the attraction and retention of talent. So we have to define the objective perhaps a little bit more narrowly to say that we want to make sure that our space, our office space, is attractive to new talent. So our way of measuring is specific to the project that we're dealing with. Yes, I'm interested in attracting and retaining new talent, but I want to make sure that our space is attractive to new talent, that nobody leaves our office because it's a dreary space to work in. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Observations?
I'm going to say again, going once. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have, I think, about 5 minutes break. Well, I'll just get the rest of the team to join us here for our lunch.